Night watchman, how long till daybreak? Night watchman, how long till daybreak? How long will this night last? How long will this night last? Morning's coming, but for now, it's still night.
I'm bringing up the pictures here. All right, Katherine Albrecht here. I am live on YouTube, and this hour I am talking about something called exogestation, or the artificial womb. It has gone a lot further than I thought it had. And back in 2023, hang on, I'm going to paste this. If you're listening on YouTube or if you're listening on the radio and you're able to hop over to Katherine-Albrecht.com and click in my chat room, I just posted a link to the National Institutes of Health. There is an article there, and I'm going to read you from this article because it is horrifying and very disturbing regarding artificial wombs. If you're able to click the link, scroll down, and you will see the picture that I'm talking about that looks like a vacuum seal, like a Daisy Seal meal, if you remember from the 70s, a vacuum sealed sack of plastic containing liquid and a gestating fetus of a pig and a gestating fetus of a lamb. The picture is horrifying. It looks like something out of the worst science fiction nightmare movie you could imagine. And I do believe that those nightmare horror science fiction movies come directly from the mind of the devil himself. And that is where this came from. All right. The article is from, this particular article is 2024, January 2024. That's when it was published. The abstract, exogestation, has made considerable advances lately to the point that the first therapeutic applications in humans can be considered. Now, this is 2024. In 2023, is it the FDA? Yeah, the FDA held a meeting in which this was actually discussed with a straight face. I believe it was September of 2023. I'll pull that up in a minute. I'll give you the link to that. And at that meeting, experts, quote unquote, bioethicists, quote unquote, from all over came to one place. They all got together at this FDA meeting, and they discussed the viability and the ethics of growing human beings in these artificial wombs, these plastic sacks in laboratories. It's absolutely horrifying. All right, I'm just going to read here. The successful demonstration of artificial womb technology, or AWT, in animal models has heightened interest in human applications, but with significant technological, ethical, and legal challenges. The first clinical trials will involve, all right, do you hear this? Do you hear this? Okay, I'm going to repeat that again. The first clinical trials will, hang on, what? How did we get here? Does anybody even know that there are clinical trials taking place right now involving human neonates, or in utero babies, developing babies that are being extracted from their mothers and placed into plastic wombs? All right, well, more on this in a moment. The first clinical trials will involve cases of premature birth at 22 to 24 weeks, when neonatal intensive care unit is UNITA, right, plural units, are unviable. Eventually, there are hopes of applying the same technology to babies identified with congenital defects that can only be effectively treated through surgical or other interventions early in pregnancy. Okay, what? All right, let me read it. Otherwise known as ecto, E-C-T-O, ectogestation. It's exo and ecto seem to be interchangeable. AWT, artificial womb technology, involves transfer of a fetus to an external womb surrogate filled with a fluid containing electrolytes. During transfer, the placenta must quickly be reattached to an external supply for nutrient delivery, removal of waste products, and exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. This involves the critical stage of intrauterine to extrauterine, in other words, within the uterus and outside of the uterus, transplantation, which must avoid damage to the fetus while avoiding harm to the mother. I don't usually like reading articles when I'm doing radio, but I think you need to hear this. First demonstration of viability. Artificial womb technology has been subject to research in animal models for some years, largely because of its potential application to humans. A major step forward came in 2017 when scientists at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia published a successful demonstration of ectogestation of a premature lamb fetus. And that article, if you want to look it up, is Partridge et al. 2017. Let me post a link to that. Hang on, copy link. I'll put it over here. So this is 2017. I had no idea. I had no idea. Previous attempts to extend gestation in extracorporeal systems. I love that we're inventing words like extracorporeal, meaning extra outside of, corporeal, meaning the body. Previous attempts to extend gestation in extracorporeal systems outside the womb had only limited success, usually with complications ensuing, you think? The 27 study, though, made significant progress while also demonstrating an approach that might help make the transition to humans, where the fetus is relatively smaller, at the same developmental stage. Lambs, like most mammals, are born larger relative to adult size and are more physically developed than human babies. Now, you may recall Dolly the lamb. This was the first cloning experiment which was done on lambs and pigs. So lambs and pigs seem to be the two animals that they do this stuff to. There are entire cloning farms or farms of cloned pigs that have been cloned to provide hearts for human transplantation into human beings. We talked about that on a previous show. You can probably look it up. Previous attempts to extend the system. I can't even believe I'm reading. I can't. Forgive me, Lord, that I'm even reading this. Forgive us, Lord, that this has ever even been developed. I'm so sorry for the human race. I apologize for us all. The system incorporates a pumpless oxygenator circuit. That pumpless oxygenator circuit connected to the fetus of a lamb via an umbilical cord interface and a closed bag filled with artificial, quote, amniotic fluid to reproduce the environment of the womb as closely as possible. Figure 1. This is figure 1, and it's disgusting. There's a picture of a lamb and things going in and out of it and pumps and lines, and it looks like a engineering spec document. Ew. Lack of a pump avoided pulses of pressure that could possibly damage the lamb's immature circulation. Yeah, because we're really worried about damaging this poor lamb. The normal gestation period for sheep is 5 months. That is half of, obviously, just over half the human term of 9 months. The author showed that the fetal lambs that are developmentally equivalent to extreme premature human infants could be physiologically supported in this extra-uterine device for up to 4 weeks and even longer. Okay, and then it goes on and on and on with all this yucky stuff. So this is published in 2024 and talks about clinical trials with humans. Let me now move to, hang on, let me find my other article. So I got another article about the FDA and the ethics of this, and that was upsetting. Yeah, here we go. FDA Advisory Committee meeting. Okay. So the Food and Drug Administration, which is really charged for, taking care of our health and safety, on September 19th, 2023. Now, this is about a year before the Lord picked me up and stuck me in wonderful work that I'm doing. Not stuck me, but opened the road for this fabulous road that I'm on. That was around September 2024. So this was 1 year before. They held a pediatric advisory committee, and there are, let me post the link to this on my chat room so you can see what I'm talking about. And if you're on YouTube, I'll post it there too because I have access to that chat. Oops. There we go. Here's the link. Okay, there you go. So this is the link, and the people doing this are not like, I don't know, the horror movie creepazoids of the Nazi Party. They are pediatric people and ethics people and people you would think would not even look twice at this technology. They have convinced themselves. So here's what I've concluded. I have so much to say about this, but what I've concluded is I've just thought about this and pondered it. This is a litmus test. Let me just say that. This is a litmus test to whether you whether you know the truth or you don't. I honestly, that's real. This is going to come down to, I'm going to show this to people. I'm going to test it and see if it's actually accurate. This is a litmus test in that if you know the Lord, if you know the value of a human life, if you value God's creation, if you value the wonderful, wonderful things that God has done on this earth in creating people and photosynthesis and plants and oceans and waves and seeds and all of the goodness that makes this earth run, if you value those things, you will take one look at these photos and you will recoil in disgust. I didn't throw up, but I cried. I sobbed. I was just sobbing and just saying, forgive us, Lord, because this is so sick. It's sick. Like there's not even a dot of light in this. It's all dark. It's 100% dark. And I'm reading this, and the arguments that people are making, and you can see it. If you go on the page that I just gave you for the FDA, go to the very bottom one, which is the slide. This is a slideshow. Let me tell you what it is. Ethical considerations for a first in-human trial of AWT, artificial womb technology, by Mark Mercurio, MD, MA, which is a master's, professor of pediatrics and director of the program for biomedical ethics at the Yale School of Medicine. All right. Now, when I say litmus test, this is a litmus test between do you know God or don't you? I'm sorry, plain and simple. If you know God and you look at this picture, nothing in you says, well, we could use that for good. Everything in you goes, that is repulsive. I'd rather die. I would literally rather die than be involved in anything touching this research. I would rather die. In fact, it is hard, that hour that I was sobbing, it was hard to even be a human being alive on this planet knowing this is happening. That's how disgusted I was by this, all right? If you do not know the Lord, you will look at this and this guy's arguments, because clearly Mark Mercurio does not know the Lord, or he wouldn't have written any of these things he wrote. Because if you don't know the Lord, the argument for this is we can use it to save lives. We can use it to save babies who are born prematurely. We can put them in these plastic bags and they won't have to die. All right. Nothing could justify this. Nothing. All right. Take a look at the pictures. You'll be horrified. All right. I'm Katherine Albrecht. We are coming up on a break. I'm on YouTube. Join me there. I'll post my links there too. And I'll be right back.
Is your email box overrun with spam? With a StartMail account, you'll never have to give your real email address to a stranger again. Online shopping, newsletter subscriptions, getting that 30% off coupon, they all need your email address. But with StartMail, you can invent new addresses or aliases linked to your inbox behind the scenes and give those out to people while keeping your real address hidden. It's just one more protection from StartMail.com.
Red alert, users. You've fallen in a trap that could ruin your life if you keep using Yahoo.
You consent to sharing all data in your email account with our AI providers, and you grant us a perpetual license to use, display, publish, and publicly distribute your content in any media known now or in the future, and to let other users access and distribute it as well.
Yikes. It's time to switch to StartMail, the only email that's AI-free and private by design. StartMail.com. Use promo code JD.
I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. I knew you. I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Before you were born, I set you apart. I set you apart. Don't be afraid of the people, for I will be with you. Don't be afraid afraid of the people, for I will protect you. I have put my words in your mouth. I have put my words in your mouth. Look, what do you see? I see a branch from an almond tree. Good eyes, I'm sticking with you. I'll make every word I give you come true. Today I've made you strong, like a fortified. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you in due time. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you in due time. Casting all your care upon Him, casting all your worries upon Him, for He cares for you. He cares for you. He cares. He cares for you.
Thank goodness. I'm so glad He does. Yeah, I'm a little choked up. Just all of it. Okay, that's not my job. My job is not to be choked up in front of you. My job is to tell you the truth so you can respond appropriately. And the only response to this is just drop to your knees and say, Lord, forgive us. Forgive us. Come quickly, Lord Jesus. This is Stanford. Now, let me go back. I'll go back to this FDA thing. Gosh. All right, Yale. This FDA thing, this ethics guy is from Yale. Professor of Pediatrics, Neonatology, Director of the Pediatric Ethics Program. Please, dear heaven, dude. The Yale New Haven Children's Hospital. He's the director of the Program for Biomedical Ethics at the Yale University School of Medicine. So this is clearly Mark Mercurio is a pretty well-credentialed guy. He delivered the very last session of the FDA's discussion of exo or ecto gestation, the use of artificial wombs to put actual human babies into. And I'm just going to skim through his slideshow here, and I want to show you some of the stuff that you think. These are the things you think. If you look at that and you are not immediately repulsed to the core of your being, then you need to rethink who it is that you're serving, and you need to rethink where it is that you're going, because there are two roads in this world. One leads to life, one leads to death. And this one, if you think it's okay, if you're looking at this and you see these pictures and they do not fill you with dread and horror, then you are on a road right there. That's a litmus test. Your road will end in death. That's all I can say. If you look at this and it does not faze you, then you are spiritually completely out of alignment, and you need to straighten yourself up and fly right and get on your knees and repent. All right. A brief overview of some of the ethical considerations. So here's a dude. And by the way, I've often asked myself, why in the world do I have a doctorate from Harvard? Because it's not like I've been a professor or done much of anything with it. And I think the answer is so that when I come up against a guy like Mark Mercurio, MD, MA, whatever he is, I'm like, I'm not impressed. You went to Yale, you're teaching at Yale. I don't care. Like, maybe that is the reason why God put me where He put me, so that this doesn't impress me in the faintest. I went to school with people like Mark Mercurio. I have been around this a lot, and I have fully no respect at all for people with credentials if they're doing the wrong thing. Here are some of the ethical considerations. Just dying. All right, I'm going to read this with as straight a face as I can. I'm on slide number 3. Why am I echoing? Hello? Oh, I don't know what just happened. KHNC just loudly fed me back to myself. Am I live, JD?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I don't know what that was. All right, so I'm on slide number 3 of 33. This is the presentation by Mark Mercurio of Yale University, heavily credentialed guy in bioethics and pediatrics. And this was delivered in September of 2023 at the FDA's hearing on the ethics, or meeting, I guess, it wasn't even a hearing, on the ethics of doing this to human beings. The slide number 3 has a picture. I wish I could show it to you. It says vulnerable populations and the risk of exploitation. Okay, can I just barf right here at this sentence? If there ever was a vulnerable population, it would be human fetuses. They have not only, I mean, they can't even cry. Like, at least a baby can scream and cry and let you know you're hurting it. A fetus can't even do that. It is the most vulnerable of all populations there are that could possibly exist. A fetus is the most. And then it says, and the risk of exploitation. Excuse me, this is totally exploitation. I'm just disgusted. All right, he's got a little balance, like a little teeter-totter, and in the middle is a little fulcrum, I guess you call it, and there's a teeter-totter. And on the one side, best interest of child subjects, and on the other side, science to benefit others. And we got to balance these two things. Give me a break. All right, as though the, I don't know. Okay, let me go on. Which way should the balance tip? This is his next slide. Here's the answer. Individual beneficence must take precedence over collective notions of beneficence. And the pediatric research community must remember that our responsibilities to individual children outweigh more speculative concerns about potential benefits to future generations of children. They need to remember that. They need to remember their Hippocratic oath that says, I will protect human life. All right, well, at least that's in here. But then he goes on to say the exact opposite. All right. Research involving greater than minimal risk but presenting the prospect of direct benefit to the individual subjects. All right, now this is where he found his loophole, because he can actually do this awful, disgusting, horrific thing by finding a loophole in which he can argue that it's benefiting the baby he's doing it to. Then he goes on, and then he highlights this. The risk is justified by the anticipated benefit to the subjects. So this is his whole big long thing, and that's the yellow highlight right there. That it's worth the risk because we're going to benefit these babies. All right, now let me go on. So gross. Okay, I'm going to go on. Permissible. So he's got some choices. Impermissible, can't do it. Permissible, you're allowed to do it. Obligatory, you have to do it. This is ethical permissibility. Apparently, this is like a whole academic field, and this is the places you have to figure out where things fall. He says here, the zone of ethical permissibility is where this falls. He highlights it, that it's permissible to put human babies in these things. And then he goes on and provides the most hypocritical reason I've ever heard of. I'm scrolling down to way down. All right, go, if you're looking at the slideshow, go to page 28. And on page 28, it says pushing back the gestational age threshold. And then it talks about infants born before 22 weeks. And it says generally considered to be non-viable. And this would save them. There are no treatments for babies who come out of the womb before 22 weeks. And the whole justification, this entire FDA house of cards, is all balanced on this one thing they're arguing, which is that by developing this technology, we will be able to save babies at 22 weeks who would otherwise perish if their mother had a miscarriage or the baby came out of the womb. We would be able to use this technology. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and with a straight face, I can't. Does our society care about babies at 22 weeks? Is that like such a critical thing that they must live and not die that we're going to put who knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars into this and develop a whole new technology to rescue them? Is that really what our society cares about? And the answer is a resounding no, because our society aborts babies at 22 weeks. Our society would abort babies, even there are people arguing that they should be killed after they're even born. So abort already born babies, just kill infants. The hypocrisy here, that this guy who's a bioethicist would argue that we need this whole apparatus to do all this creepy stuff on the basis of the fact that some 22-week 22-week-old infants born out of their mother's wombs are dying. Heaven forbid we need to move everything we can, drop all of our ethical pretenses and everything else in order to rescue those babies. That is not what's going on. All right, I'm going to get out of that document because it makes me barf, and I'm going to switch over to another even worse document. All right, this is from Stanford. Stanford is where the very first article I posted with the horrible pictures, that those guys who wrote that article are from Stanford. This article, now let me take it to the next awful part. Ethically sourced spare human bodies could revolutionize medicine. This short publication discusses the scientific and ethical issues, you won't believe this, that would be involved in using stem cells to create both non-human and human bodyoids, bodyoids, in quotes, bodies with no possibilities of consciousness or perception. If the scientific difficulties could be surmounted, these would provide opportunities for improving research on animals, including humans, by avoiding the possibility of causing pain, to provide meat without killing sentient creatures, and to provide sources of transplantable organs. So what they're now talking about with a straight face is that they're going to take this technology, create, using stem cells, create human fetuses. They're going to put them into these artificial wombs. They're going to grow them. They're going to, remove any possibility of consciousness or perception from these bodies. Then they're going to grow them to term, and then they're going to use them for spare parts. They're going to cut them open, use them for transplantation, and they're going to be able to do experimentation on them. In fact, reading further into this article, you can't really tell when you torture a mouse or a cat or a dog whether you're really finding not torture, when you do vivisection and you use them for animal experimentation, whether it really applies to humans or not. But with these things, with these bodyoids, if we can create human beings, we can test it on real human bodies. We won't need experimental animals anymore. We won't need this proxy to suffer for us. We'll just have humans, and we'll make sure they can't suffer. Okay, this idea is straight from the pit of hell. It is straight from the pit of hell. If you are hearing this, and I'm gonna do a diagnosis right now of your soul. If you are hearing this and you're like, yeah, but it would save so many people, I'm telling you, run, do not walk to the foot of the cross and give your life to Jesus Christ, because you are on the road to hell. All right, stay tuned.
I've been hearing a lot about the LifeWave patches, and they sound amazing. And I'm thinking I want to try them for myself. But can you tell me how they work?
You wear the patch, which is about the size of 12 hours a day, 12 on, 12 off. And the patch uses your body's own light and energy and copper peptides to reactivate the dormant stem cells in your body. Once a stem cell has been reactivated, it can be used by any of the cells in your body that need it, creating a healing and growth process you haven't experienced since your youth. So in a nutshell, this is how the LifeWave X39 patch works.
You can purchase the LifeWave patches by going to americasfreedomnetwork.com. Then click on the Natural Health Products button at the top of the page. That's americasfreedomnetwork.com.
Look, this product works, and you've got nothing to lose because there's a 100% money-back guarantee.
That's americasfreedomnetwork.com. Thank you. Hi, this
I've called you by name. You are mine. You are mine. When you go through deep waters, I'll be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned out. The flames won't consume you.
Subject? You can. Call or text Katherine right now at 877-536-1360. That's 877-536-1360.
place. Truly, God is in this place. Truly, incredible, wonderful, holy.
Right, I'm back.
God is in this place.
So I hate to tell you there's more to come. I'm not done yet. Isn't this the grossest show I've ever done? I think it is the most disgusting program. I've done some doozies. I've done shows on titanium hearts and pig hearts being put into people. I've done shows about a lot of awful things, but I have to say this takes the cake. I have yet, I think in my entire time on this planet, I have yet to see people who are not overt criminals or overtly just evil monsters doing things in the name of goodness that are this appalling, truly. This is it. This tops my. I hope I don't find anything even worse than this. All right. This is. So there's an institute on the family in Finland, I think. I thought it was in Copenhagen, but I think it's in Finland. The Institute on the Family is anything but. It is a university department that focuses on anti-family, being about as opposed to the family as you can be. This is an article that came out of here, actually. There's a bunch of articles out of here, but I'm just going to read this one. This one's from Andrea Bidoli. She's in the UK, so she's not part of that, but I think she interfaces with them. Okay, more than an idea why ectogestation should become a concrete option. This was written... doesn't have a date, but I'll look in a minute. It was sometime in the last couple of years. Abstract. Now, remember I told you guys, when you have an academic article, it will always have at the top a 1 to 2 paragraph abstract, usually one paragraph, but sometimes it's really long. This one is. That gives you the summary of what the article is about. So I'm just going to read you the abstract. This paper calls for the development of a method of ectogestation as an emancipatory intervention for women. You know what emancipation is? We had the Emancipation Proclamation, which set the slaves free in the United States. So emancipation is freedom from slavery. Again, this paper calls for the development of ectogestation as an emancipatory intervention for women. I argue that ectogestation would have a dual social benefit. First, by providing a gestational alternative to pregnancy, it would create unique conditions to reevaluate one's reproductive preferences, which for women always include gestational considerations, and to satisfy a potential preference not to gestate. Enabling the satisfaction of such a preference is particularly valuable due to the pressures women face to embrace pregnancy as central to their identity, while at the same time being penalized by it. Second, ectogestation would address certain specific negative social implications of gestation and childbirth, which cannot be avoided through social measures as they are caused by the corporeal nature of these phenomena. Finally, I argue it is unfair to hold ectogestation to a higher standard than other innovations such as modern contraceptives and non-medical egg freezing. When you go deeper into this, it gets even more disgusting. It gets worse and worse. She talks about how it is a burden upon women. That goes all the way back to the 1970s, that there is an inherent burden and unfairness and sort of slavery on women in that we are forced to use our bodies to bring the next generation into the world, and exogestation would solve this. All right, now there's another article written in response to this. Ectogestation for men, why aren't we talking about it? So this is a reply to the first one by Juna Resanen, who, telling you this guy's an incel if I've ever seen one. He even writes about being an incel. It's pretty gross. Andrea Bedoli argues that ectogestation could be seen as an emancipatory intervention for women. Yes, that is what she said. Specifically, she claims that ectogestation would create unique conditions to reevaluate one's reproductive preference address certain specific negative social implications of gestation and childbirth, and that it is unfair to hold it to a higher standard than other innovations such as contraceptives and freezing eggs. By the way, I oppose freezing eggs because you've taken actual human souls and you've put them in a freezer. In this commentary, I claim, now here's where he gets just insane, that Bedoli, like so many others, unjustly bypasses men and their reproductive desires. For a long time, the discussion of the ethics of ectogenesis is focused on women and their reproductive liberation. However, since in many countries an increasing number of men in reproductive age face difficulties in finding a partner, it is men who need ectogestation the most. All right, now there's another article, and I don't think I can find it. Hang on, ecto. I thought I had it here. Hang on. Oh, yeah, here we go. All right, one more. Does ectogestation have oppressive potential? Here, let me post these. I'll give you these. Hang on a minute. Okay, I'm posting them in my chat room, so if you're there, you can grab them. And there's this one, ectogestation for men. And there, I'll post these in my YouTube. Sorry about this, people on the radio. One more second. I'm almost done. And then this last one, which is about transgender issues, because why leave them out? And that's over here. Okay. Post that one too. There you go. Not that you guys want to read all this. I did it so you don't have to. All right, does ectogestation have oppressive potential? This is February 2023. Also, Andrea Bedoli together with two other people. Hang on, let me scroll down to the part. Here, let me just do a little find-in page so I'm not keeping you holding here. There we go. Ectogestation might benefit transgender individuals by detaching gestation from the concept of womanhood, as argued by Katherine McKay. When used to define womanhood, traditional pregnancy, quote, privileges some women over others, both under the law and in moral and political imaginations. By conceptually breaking the exclusive relation between pregnancy and bodies with female physiology, ectogestation could disrupt oppressive trans-exclusive narratives, framing trans women as, quote, lacking those female reproductive traits traditionally used to, quote, delineate who counts as a woman. For trans men, the benefit could be double. On the one hand, those not wanting to gestate would have an additional way to become parents. On the other hand, a weaker link between pregnancy and perceived womanhood could help those trans men and non-binary people who have the gendered term mother imposed on them based solely on having gestated their children. In fact, in many systems, people who give birth are registered as mothers regardless of their legal gender. It is crucial to note that queer persons rely on reproductive technologies significantly more than heteronormative persons for their chances to become parents. These aspects have led some to suggest the possibility of a moral obligation, and that is italicized by the author, a moral obligation to extend the availability of ectogestation to individuals or couples identifying as members of sexual or gender minority groups who likewise seek to pursue parenthood. Okay, this slippery slope probably began with in vitro fertilization. In the 1970s, there was, people held their breath when the first test tube baby was born, because there was a concern that a baby born in a test tube might not have a soul. That, go back and do the research. You can find it in the 1970s. There was a big concern, actually, because never before had it been possible to fuse an egg with a sperm cell outside of the womb. And people were wondering, especially people, I think Catholics were wondering this, and probably really anybody who thinks deeply about these issues was wondering, will God place a soul into an artificially or human created union between sperm and egg cell? Will God place a soul in that being, or will this person be born, this baby, this individual be born without a soul? And of course, the first baby, I don't have her name in front of me, but the first baby, she's now probably, I don't know, she's in her 50s, early 50s now. She clearly has a soul. And so the question that people were asking back then is, will God continue to place souls into the things that human beings create using his raw materials? Will God continue to place souls into babies that are created to be bodyoids and to be cut apart and to be used for parts or to be experimented on? Will God place a soul in them? And as much as horrifying as it is to say, I think the answer is yes. And this is why I think we're nearing the end. God is not going to let this go on forever. This is not going to be able. There's no way that humanity is going to be able to take the raw material that God uses to create life, that God uses to put souls of infinite value into corporeal form and allow us to exist on this earth, to determine where we will spend eternity, worshiping him or distant from him. I cannot imagine that he would allow this to go on too much longer. And when I said I was sobbing, I was crying my guts out yesterday. I texted Pastor Anthony and I said, I really need prayer. And he called me and prayed with me. And I couldn't even get through the prayer. I was sobbing so hard. So the crying was, forgive us, Lord, forgive us. What are we doing? What's happening? And if you can't see it, if you can't feel it, I'm just going to repeat again, dear heaven, turn from your wicked ways. We are not the top. We are not in charge. We shouldn't be in charge, because this is what happens when we're in charge. Disgusting things. So let God be in charge. I'm so glad he's in charge of my life. I'm so glad that he's in charge and that he has the ultimate victory. All this stuff will be swept away and the former things will be no more. No more crying, no more death, and the tears will be wiped from all these babies' eyes. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for being with me this hour, and continue to pray with me. Lord God, protect us. All right. Katherine Albrecht here, Katherine-Albrecht.com. The archives, you'll be able to find us on YouTube as well. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless you. Thanks so much for listening.